The key CX challenge that's facing us at the moment is that communications are this enormous problem. And it's almost like when we were hearing this thread being played back, this tune being played to us was, well, communications are communications, aren't they? You know, but why is it an enormous problem? So in terms of the drill down on that, we wanted to understand, particularly from those people who totally disagreed. So if you think of that, more than a third of the respondents said communications internally and externally around CX are messing us up. They're screwing us over. They're not doing any favors for anybody. And overall, it's creating this bad impression about what our CX can deliver. So we spent quite a bit of time on this one to actually sort of drill into it and better understand it, because there was something like 20 facets to communication that came out. And so we did a mini poll back to those people who were responding to the deep dive and said, okay, we need to break this down. And then I've used sort of extracted videos from some of those interviews to actually understand, you know, why it's perceived as being an enormous problem. So with that in mind, let's play the videos and then we'll come back and chat about it for a couple of minutes. Okay.
Everybody knowing what they have to do, what is the overall objective.
So there was a key one, was that in terms of our CX communication, does everybody know what they have to do and what the overall objective of doing it is? In terms of the delivery of these experiences and who's responsible and who's involved, do we have a sort of a clear line of sight you know, on what's happening? And this chap, Jim.
Each department, each division has its own vocabulary.
Yeah, and you don't have to spend too long, do you, moving across different departments in different corporate land, where they'll throw out all these acronyms, and oftentimes we're too shy to ask about what that acronym means, because that might show us our embarrassing lack of knowledge about how stuff gets done around here. But it's having that common vocabulary for CX across the organization. It's almost like saying these are the 30 terms that we always use in the context of CX, and as you'll see with the next practice piece. The other thing about communications, and I indicated it on number 2 in terms of CX strategy, is there's just so much of it now. I mean, how many systems have we surrounded ourselves with to be able to provide us with data and communication? So Jim again.
Low code and Scrum and all the latest tools and methods.
From spreadsheets to messaging, to phone calls or emails, or, well, you name it.
Huge Excel.
The famous Excel, where you log 300 actions and you are tracking, I would say, locally and separately the progress, losing the, I would say, the global picture.
And again, that's very important, is it? Losing the global picture. We get sort of bogged down and mired in the detail. And from the point of view of communications as well, is you take a few days out of the business and it takes you an eon to catch up with the emails, to then read the messages on WhatsApp, to then catch up with the SMS text messages, is then to pull a team together to sort of say, so guys, you know, there's too much, tell me what's going on. And everybody does their piece and they all get distracted away from them. That is fundamental to CX success, is having a clear set of objectives about what we're doing and why we're doing it, and then a clear line of sight to remove this inconsistency and disconnectedness, as Jim was describing it. And I also think, you know, this idea of the CX communications need to be focused on what we're trying to achieve, and, you know, over what time scale, who's responsible and how, and not to get sort of bogged down in the minutiae of all that. So let's finish off with our friend Christy here.
The communication is not focused.
And how could we make it focused? What would they do? So we'll have a look at that. So that's really the hub of it, is that CX communication just isn't working. It's almost as if we've sort of slotted back into the way things get done around here, and all the mechanisms we've got to communicate with all these different systems. So whether it's Slack, Microsoft 365, or whether it's, you know, Google Meetings, whether it's Zoom, well, all this plethora of things, right, which are actually getting us in the way of delivering excellent customer experiences. It seems as though, you know, to try to solve it, we have to become part of the problem. Well, is there a better way? perhaps there is.
The communication.
So again, put your
is not focused.
thoughts and comments in the
Tools,
chat room,
everybody knows from
you know,
practice,
and let's get this clear line of sight. You know, let's understand the outcomes we're trying to get to.